Good afternoon, everyone. You've been hearing from Verizon and a number of other operators over the last day and a half. And today's session, one of the reasons why we have the panel that we have, it's really because they are the practitioners of the two domains that we're going to be talking about: customer experience and decision intelligence. And decision intelligence, using an umbrella term to describe all the capabilities and the tools that are then brought to bear to be able to deliver the next generation of the customer engagement, customer experience, and ultimately customer profitability. So we're going to talk about not only their approach and their strategy, but we'll also get into the details of how. As practitioners, the strategy that they've adopted, the operational practices they've put in place, and the learnings that they have accumulated as a part of their journey. And so we have a very diverse group here: Tier 1 North America, operator from Latin America, Liberty, that works across many geographies, many different countries, and then obviously their strategic suppliers as well. So I'm going to start off with a low-hanging fruit, sort of the easy question, to which we all know the answer, but let me just ask it anyways. There is obviously the hype and the practice of AI and decisioning intelligence. From your perspective, as an overall strategy, how important it is for Liberty? How do you see this space as part of your overall initiatives in terms of where the company is going and how it is incorporating this? And that's this question is valid for all four of you. So we'll start off with you, Mauricio, but then we'll work our way down.
No, definitely so important that as a strategy in the company, we have decided that the proper use of data and AI is going to actually drive the decisions and the transformation that we are going to take in the next years. Latin America is a little bit different than North America from the perspective that we are, I would say, one generation behind in terms of demographics. So until a few years ago, before pandemic, actually the business was, let's throw as many home passes and phones as possible to the market because there was still a big amount of unconnected population. But that era is gone before the pandemic. And now we are living the point where we, as a company, have realized very quickly that the next level of profitability is not driving to the growth of new users, but actually in ensuring that we have the proper value proposition and the proper quality of our products and services, meaning services also our care and support channels. And that's absolutely impossible without really understanding what our customer needs and how to act on them. So what we actually have figured out is very quickly we need to catch up with the more, I would say, developed countries, telecom companies in leveraging our data. So we are going to a massive data quality and structuring transformation. Over that, putting a lot of traditional advanced analytics, which has been, I would say, the next stage where we are fairly mature now, understanding what our customers need, why do they interact with us, what products do they use. Then go to the layer where we are right now sitting, which is the non-generative AI, using all the traditional, I would say, techniques of classification, prediction, and unsupervised models to really understand our customer needs and how to act over them. And we are actually also engaging very fast into the generative AI stage, which is also improving the interaction that we have with our customers. At this point, we really see this as a fully integrated strategy. We are not just focusing ourselves in Gen AI, because we at least perceive that Gen AI by itself is not going to change everything. We really need to integrate Gen AI as the last layer of this fully integrated ecosystem that is going to not only enable us to better understand our customers, but it's going to enable us to better act over them. And we are already doing it in all the critical touch points that we have identified in the customer journey to ensure that they have the best possible experience and the best value from our products.
Good.
Yeah, before I start, good afternoon. I know there was a typo on the last name. Tom and I share the same last name for the forum. We are brothers in the industry, but I am Latheef Syed. Okay, so coming back to the question here, and Mauricio articulated really well. So if you look at the entire spectrum or the journey of our customers, it starts from the prospects all the way to the retention, this entire life cycle that we have to solve. Oftentimes we do point-in-time solutions or, okay, this is not working, this experience needs to be elevated, and so on and so forth. It's good, but when we put entire thing to the perspective, we have to look at the entire journey, even before the customer becomes part of the telco. How do we go and approach? How do we start that experience from the get-go in the right way? And then comes the actual customer relationship, retention, and how we go about elevating their experience overall. In order to do this, we have to really look at what are the levers that we have to pull strategically. And one of the major levers is bringing insights. At every point in time in the journey, we had to ensure that we are capturing the journey right, along with the insights that's going to help us propel that experience further. And this is where we are invested at Verizon. If you look at it, we have a massive following in terms of customer base. Our embedded base and the customer segments that we have is huge. And what we look at is how do we bring GenAI and AI part of every mile marker the customer is going through, whether it's being the initial onboarding, whether it's being the customer care, network experience, retention, and so on and so forth. So our imperative is how do we use this as our strategic value through the use cases, and also apply GenAI in the multiple areas where we can move that. Because there is not like one single bullet and then you get everything in. It's more of a cumulative approach we have to take. And this is where, when we say customer experience, there is a customer health score, I call it. How do we measure that? In order to do this, we have to look from network standpoint, care standpoint, sales standpoint. It's a very highly anticipated experience that we have to run through. And this is where it plays a very important role.
Good. So we'll get into the how in the next series of questions. I assume when you talk about onboarding, it would include point of sale as well, right?
Yep.
Okay. Tom?
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for joining us all today. It's brilliant, and I just want to reiterate one of the points we heard yesterday from Andy at AT&T, I think, made the comment. Incredible time. I'm not a young man. You can see I've been in this industry for a long time, following TMF principles back when it was still ETOM, through business process framework, now ODA, all the new evolution. And we did great architecture. We did great work. We had returns. But oh my God, what an inflection point that we're at right now. I think ServiceNow, we provide great plumbing, great tooling to do that. But our job is really to enable our customers to follow the models that the TM Forum have and really realize that benefits, be it great data, curated data that can be put into the LLMs. We provide domain-specific models, and I think it's really important to be able to protect the data that you have, ensure that the data you have that your customers have trusted you with is kept in a secure model. Yes, you need to use it with your Gen AI languages, but you got to keep it secure. You got to keep that data private. And then have great actions. You need a system of action using the business process framework or ODA. What are you going to do? Once you have the data, the guidance, the recommended action from the engines, we need good systems to perform that action. So Gen AI is incredible. It's powerful. But you need the plumbing. You definitely need to make sure that you've got a good architecture that recognizes the data, the processes, and the next step that's going to act from that data.
Raju?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. Sanjay, you said it's a simple question, but it's tricky. I can actually get fired if I say Tech Mahindra being a global system integrator, primarily focusing on telecom industry, given our heritage. If we have not recognized and made serious investments to help our telecom customers achieve the strategy that Mauricio and Latheef mentioned, but also help them with the approach and implementation. So those who don't know me, my name is Raju Desai. I manage communications business for Tech Mahindra in North America. And why that is important is because I get a privilege, or my company gets a privileged view of interacting with some of the industry's best minds, especially in a communications vertical, get their insight, their AI-led telco strategy. And that gives us the insight into how we can help them accelerate, right? Tech Mahindra has been in business for more than 3 decades. We are one of the primary telecommunication service provider. What do we bring on table? What are the kind of investments we do, right? Number one, when you apply AI, it has to be contextual. Autonomous network is a great example on a lot of sessions that has happened today. So Tech Mahindra, we have thousands of people who are telecom domain experts. So that's the first thing we invest, continue to invest and bring on table. Second is the engineering capability that we bring on table, whether it is about building a data lake, whether it is about integrating all the LLMs, whether it is about integrating SaaS platforms, right? In order to, again, help them implement the strategy and accelerate their implementation approach. Third, which I'm very proud, I would like to mention, maybe Tech Mahindra is one of the only few global system integrators who have built LLM from scratch. We have invested in a project called Product Indus, and we have implemented telecom-specific LLM for Indonesian telecom operator. So again, these are the couple of things that we bring on table and the investments that we are making in order to help our telecom partners achieve their journey.
Yeah. So we'll get into that around how applicable that is for what you may have built for one operator in one part of the world, across others. So let's get into the how.
Yeah.
Let me start with you first. Verizon has described this customer experience life cycle. How you shaped it, how you built it, what were the tools you brought to bear to be able to create that journey, and obviously, to measure it, create the right metrics around it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know yesterday in the keynote, Cameron was mentioning how embedded AI is part of our business processes and also the enablement that we're doing for the end customer. When we look from the how standpoint, we try to cater both the internal and external customers. What I mean by that is internal customers are the people who are serving our customers, and external customers are our subscribers. We look at how do we make sure that the tools that we are digitalizing or the assets that we are building can be self-serve. The how part comes in what areas that causes pain points in the customer journey. If we look, with a myopic view, we always see there is a huge gap in terms of how we measure the different levels a customer goes through. Starting from, again, going back to the same example, starting from the customer comes on and on the first day, he goes to a store, goes to a care center or sales center, he or she, and then from that point, how that experience can elevate. Oftentimes, we miss the bar on the very first 2 steps, and then we try to catch up. So what we're doing differently now is, you might have seen in the previous session when Himanshu was presenting the overall customer experience realm. We have defined scores at each and every level. Score 1 is what is the overall experience when the customer comes in? And then what is their customer care experience? What is their experience when they go into the retail store? So we have started building scoring mechanisms at each and every level, and also not missing the pulse on the network-related events, because this is where the NRB has a lot of trouble tickets that get created if there are some service issues and whatnot, how that impacts the customer lifecycle. Because ultimately, we want to make our base management stronger, and at the same time, we also want to ensure that we are able to help the customer with their pain points, whatever they have. So GenAI is embedded in all these areas. We had a recent, program launched around this, especially looking at the overall service complexity, where when a customer care rep is handling the customer, has enough information to satisfy the questions or even fulfill the questions. This is where GenAI plays a very important role. I know Himanshu presented in the previous session where we collect all the corpus of data, enable what it can be catered towards the questions the customer is asking for, rather than sifting through multiple documents and so on. The last piece I want to mention here is the quality experience score is critical. We have now built that in the care space. We have built that in the network space. And we're also building that in our overall end-to-end journey space as well. So cumulative of all these things help us go there. Again, it was built using a rule-based approach in the past. And it only can scale for a few rules here and there, right? When you have all these permutations, combinations, we definitely have to tap into AI and also leverage some of the Gen AI capabilities through LLMs or SLMs in that matter, and how we can push this through to the end customer in terms of understanding their pain points. So this is how we have started the journey. Again, it's a multi-pronged approach, and we are trying to see how we can get this through right for the first time and then make it across different business units, whether it's consumer, business, or others as well.
How real time is this experience score that you can actually react to it in a way that you can fix it?
We want to get into real time, but right now it's more of an intraday. Initially we are operating like weekly, now we are into the batch, but almost I would say intraday we are able to get, especially on the network piece, if we have some kind of related outage or challenges, how do we tap into that, get that score up so that the field reps or the customer reps can know exactly where the challenges are and react.
So in terms of hurdles, that's holding you back from near real time, or, clearly the experience, the asymmetry of the experience will vary, based on region and number of other things. But is there a target you have in mind that you want to get it, and what would be the top 3 challenges that are holding you back from getting there?
Yeah, it's a decade-old challenge. Sorry, you were saying something?
In the tele, we'll always ask trick questions. No simple.
Yeah, we'll handle it. So I would say the main thing is to get the foundation right. I know the business wants everything now, and we have to enable it for our business. But at the same time, if you don't get our foundation right, it becomes challenging. So foundation including having the right data in real time available, having the right quality and trust in the data, and enabling the features on top of that data that can support all the LLMs on top. Getting that foundation always has been challenged because we get disparate sources of data across, and then making it to a standard way to use is where the challenge is. But rest of the things can be automated. So getting that foundation is right. We have done a very good, decent job. As Himanshu was saying, again, I'm quoting him because we started in the right direction on get the foundational data elements right, standardize it so that everybody can use. And from that point onwards, it's modular so that you can plug and play wherever we go. Still, we are not out of the woods. The major other area that we are focusing on, how do we productize this information so that you don't build, again, point-in-time solution for each and every request, rather build it more like a product so that it can help the business at large. So the short answer is we want to get real time, but there are some foundational elements that we have to take care of.
Mauricio, you've been working with some of the traditional metrics like churn and applying all the next generation decisioning tools to it. We'd love to hear the how part of it.
Yeah, so we have a similar approach, but I would say we are actually going through the different points where we see that it's a critical interaction with the customer, right? So we have the network component part, and in fact, our most advanced models are right now sitting in an HFC network in the fixed part, where you have a big amount of different KPIs generated by our network supervision tools. And we are now moved from the point where you had the engineers deciding what are the thresholds and what should we actually aim for at the moment of defining if a network component is faulting or not, and actually tracing back from the customer complaints and interactions all the way back to the different KPIs in the network that are generating the calls, right? And also include in that you have all the different positions from having the right data, having the right aggregation and ETLs to understand how can we build the right features, having the right classification model, and with Gen AI, by the way, that was the latest release, differentiating a real tech interaction from a false one, right? And like that, we have different points in the customer journey. We have also a lot of now information that we're generating from billing potential issues or frictions that we don't want to deal with, sales quality frictions. Especially in our region, it's very interesting, the sales quality, how big of a component can be. Again, very region focused, but you can have multiple people living in the same house, and they can just take turns buying a new connection, not paying for 2 months, and then as the other person buying for a new connection and so on. And that's something that is very interesting in our region, and building digital footprint models to understand this behavior and be able to act early has been important in that perspective. And also with all the non-payment and potential financial distress indexes that we also need a lot of machine learning. When you have all these components together, what we have managed to do is to build not an index, because we have 20 markets. So in the moment we build an index, by definition means that we're standardizing the needs and the behavior of the customers. And it's very different to have a customer that lives in Cayman versus a customer that lives in Jamaica, as an example. Although they are just a couple 100 kilometers away, they are completely different cultures, countries, economics. But what we realize is that even if the index has to be specific to the market, the source data and the features that we need to evaluate are the same. So what we built was a client state. Basically, for each one of our customers, we are building in this specific client, not a 360 in the traditional way that all the information that we know is all the features that we can use to feed our models for that client. And over that state of the client, we have multiple classification or reinforcement learning models for different uses. We have a classification model for churn propensity, a classification model for non-payment, a classification model for technical interactions in the future. So basically, we're all the time defining which are the customers that are most likely to call us for a technical reason in the next 2 weeks. So we can actually prioritize our network intervention activities for HFC, or we can actually put them in a special queue in the ACD for care, actually to ensure that when they call, we actually give them the proper treatment and not a troubleshoot, so they reset the modem and call again next week, because we were used to do that a lot. And additionally, we have also the reinforcement learning part, which is the next best offer for those customers. How do we want to give them the product that is going to give them the most value, which is basically what I mentioned you at the beginning. It's not only quality, it's value, right? We are now having a lot of effort to ensure that our customers are as close as they can to the best value that we have in our offers. Like these customers that were in legacy products, paying hundreds of dollars for low speeds, it looks good in the P&L, but it's not sustainable. And I prefer to take the pain a little bit right now and protect the customer lifetime value than losing the customer at some point in a year and having a very bad day in the office. Yeah. So all this together has become in this multi-layered environment where, again, you need the data to build the feature, you need the feature to build the model, the classification model, you need the classification models many cases to feed the proper Gen AI. And we are just starting to integrate Gen AI into perspectives. The first one is, how do we build more features from the interactions? Because before we only had, the customer has called me one time in the last 60 days, one time in the last 30 days, one time in the last 15 days. And the basic classification was this one. And with that, we were doing all the feature engineering to understand the contactability profile of the customer. Now we can add more stuff. For each interaction, we can generate parametric data thanks to Gen AI to really understand what is the customer talking with us, right? And then we have a new source of data that we can integrate to the customer state to build potential personalized interaction in the future, especially for the reinforcement learning engines. That's basically the full approach that we have.
Yeah. So he operates in 20 countries. Yes. And tries to build consistent model across them. You operate in how many countries in the world? 210. A degree of magnitude bigger, right? So it'd be interesting to get your perspectives on the how side. Given what they have said, what are you seeing the same or different from other operators in other parts of the world, and why?
With your permission, I can go first. So you are very right. See, when somebody like us step back and look at how we engage with most of our customers, there is no one size fit all. What we have noticed is there is a fundamental shift that we are seeing when we interact with the customer, that AI, Gen AI is no longer an IT strategy. So that's the first shift. It is all about a business strategy of AI first. How do you really drive top line as well as bottom line, right? So that's the first shift that we are noticing.
And is that consistent across geography?
Most. I think few are behind, few are further. I think I can clearly see from all the sessions, Verizon is a lot mature in the process of what they want to do in terms of autonomous network standards like ODA, thanks to TM Forum and all that. But by and large, I think what we are noticing is that it's more of a business transformation strategy, especially when you talk about customer experience, rather than leveraging technology just to really do the bottom line stuff. So that's the first thing. Customer experience by itself, we believe it's a complex definition, right? As Latheef mentioned, it's not only about building the right products, especially if you look at North America as a market, it's quite competitive, right? From a quality of service standpoint, there is hardly any difference between many operators. So how do you really leverage this technology to build some of the best product? How do you really leverage the technology to serve them better? And put together, I think that is how you ultimately enhance the customer experience. The customers are a lot smarter, those who have teenage kids over here. My son plays video games. They want the same experience on what they get on a phone versus on a mobile device. That poses challenges like how do operators really create products like slice to price and whatnot, right? So that's one aspect. It has to be fundamental. It has to be AI first and not an afterthought. Now, going back to your question on how GSIs like us really help, if I were to oversimplify, I think there are three areas primary. The first thing, irrespective of the size of the company, I think data. Data is the heart of anything and everything. And needless to say, depending on the operator, the number one challenge is the system of records are everywhere, all the way from BSS system, which is order, product catalog, all the way from OSS system, which is provisioning, and also the network operations data. It plays a very key role, right? So we as a global system integrator have a lot of learnings. We have built several platforms to migrate data consistently, standardize the data. We help them consult on how you can really govern the data in a secure fashion. So that's the first part where in the journey of customer experience or AI-led customer experience, I think this foundation is extremely key. And we notice that most operators are struggling. Few are more mature than the others. And so that is the heavy lifting that Tech Mahindra does for the most part. So that's the first part. The second part is how do we really help implement some of the AI, Gen AI use cases, which are very low hanging. Customer care is something that you mentioned. Tech Mahindra's, if you look at the service portfolio, we are in a unique position where we do, in many operator space, we do care for them. We do the BSS, OSS application development, and we also do the network operations. And there are use cases everywhere, right? It's all about the business value. So we help them accelerate through our engineering capabilities and domain knowledge on how fast we can give them quick wins, right? Whether it is in dispatch, whether it is in creating a chatbot, whether it is enabling conversational AI for the customer care agents. So that's the second part. There are a few mature customers, they have also come to us and they want us to really help develop SLMs, which are very specific for their part. And that is where Project Indus is what I mentioned. We have unique capability. I encourage the audience and everybody else, if they have time, they can come and visit us. That's the second part. Third, we have slowly also started educating our customers on where we set up Gen AI workshops for them. Because organization change management, we believe, is also a very key aspect. You can have the best technologies in the world. You can build the intelligence, decision tools, which ultimately will reflect into a higher customer experience. But organizations will also have to evolve accordingly. Chief Data Officer was not known as a formal organization maybe 5 years ago. Chief Customer Experience Officer is also relatively new, 2 years ago, right? How do you consume data? How do you democratize the data? How do you really create a data marketplace? So that's the third part, which is all about change management governance. So first is technology. Second is really doing some cool stuff in developing the LLM. and the third is organization change management. These are the three areas where we end up engaging with the CXOs of telecom all over the globe.
Tom?
Yeah. We have the advantage at ServiceNow of going beyond into all industries. So we have 85% of the Fortune 500s. And this is a common pattern. Anyone who tries to do it all, let's Gen AI across the entire organization, that's a recipe for failure. It's just like, I'm going to transform the business. I'm going to do it all in 6 months. Recipe for failure. You got to get the plumbing in place. We got some brilliant minds. We got to make sure we have curated data. Got to make sure that we have the tools in place to get there. And then we got to encourage a DNA. I think we've seen the DNA term a few times, and make sure everyone in the business is bought into this. So much ideation from everywhere in your workflow, that from the sales agents to the call center to operations and engineering, the field service. The ideas are out there. You got to encourage them and provide the tools, the facilities that to see their ideas come to fruition. You got to accept failure. We need to fail fast and innovate quickly. 6 months development cycles ain't going to cut it here. So we need to get in the mode of everyone's ready for change, everyone's rewarded for their ideas, everyone's motivated for it. Make sure we got the right plumbing, make sure we have good tools, measurements to make sure we're going in the right direction, make sure we're providing a great experience or an improving experience. We want to keep on making steps in the right direction for the customers, internal, external, employees, partners, et cetera. Cost avoidance, revenue generation, experience are all the key metrics that we want to be doing across iteratively each of these steps throughout that journey.
Yeah. So the thought about fail fast, I have a question for you on that. But before we go to that, I'll open it up for the audience if you have questions. I would like to touch upon later, if there are not too many questions, on the learnings. What are the key things that you learned as part of that journey? What were the things you would not do again as part of their journey as well? But before we get into that, are there any burning questions from the audience that would to these practitioners? If not, then we can go into the post-mortem stage of implementation of AI.
Well, they are awake after the
everybody's in violent agreement with what they have said, apparently. Yes? No? What a fantastic audience. I can't believe this.
Either they are sleeping or they caught everything that we were saying.
I was hoping at least one question to say, this is all rubbish. You don't know what you guys are doing. Okay, so let's get into the postmortem. I'll start with the fail fast.
Yeah, I would say don't get into the use case Gen AI fatigue, okay? Because there will be so many things you can think or assume, or this can be solved through Gen AI. I mean, that is the trap we all fall into. I would say look at what is the strategic value a particular use case can deliver. Is there a technology feasibility available to solve for it? Or is there a risk associated with it that's going to basically help us get there? This is something we all have to look through. Failing fast is great, but if you're failing fast on the wrong things, you're wasting time, money, and effort. So my recommendation is when you look across the use cases, I know when we initially launched Gen AI ideation process, we got about 1,600 use cases.
1,600?
1,600 within the span of whatever weeks. And then we had to slim it down, and then we get somewhere around 300 felt comfortable, and from there 50 became actual ideation, and then from there the POC started. If you have not visited our booth has a lot of Catalyst program that you can go look at it. Going back to the question, yeah, fail fast is good, but ensure you don't fall into the trap of everything can be solved through Gen AI. We have to really find which use cases means there is a problem that cannot be solved through our traditional way of doing things, and this is where the Gen AI and the AI can come in. And last but not least, having the data literacy across is very important part of the change management, because you can be in your own silo looking at the technology, the flashy thing, and saying, yeah, this is something great, we can go and do it. But you also need that support and sponsorship from the global ecosystem that you operate in. In that way, you show the value, how it can help from where we are to where we can be, and how this will help broadly for the enterprise as well. So everything goes back to the value we can create in a short term rather than building it, just for the sake of some new technology out there.
Yep. So since we have 5 minutes left, very quickly, what would you not do based on your last 1 year, 1 year of experience?
FOMO. I think there is a fear of missing out. In the industry overall, I think everybody wants to embrace AI. The promise of unlock is just too big to ignore it. But as Latheef said, I think you need to make sure there is a business value. You just don't do it for fun because it costs time, energy, money, and then sometimes it has to be ethical, it has to be secure, it has to be done in the right manner. So that would be if one take, it's cool to play around, but you should not just be driven by FOMO. It has to have a business value behind it.
Tom?
I'll come back to the issue of trust. Trust, it's earned in drops, lost in buckets. You got important data. You can't put that data into the open community. You got to protect it, keep it in your own local domain. That is your gold nuggets. That is your crown jewels. You got to make sure you protect that data.
And so your experience has been when they have not done that, when they, as in operators.
The advice is make sure, miss some innovation for the sake of keeping your data in place.
Yeah. Doesn't that go against the promise that, you can access data in a way you want to be able to run the intelligence on it?
You can access data, but you don't want the rest of the world accessing your data.
No, for sure.
So that to me is the whole, that you can complement your data with the value of the rest of the world, definitely.
But
you want to take advantage of that.
The folks who believe in platform economy, or folks who believe in double-sided business models would say, federate it to the world. Mm-hmm. They will make use of it, and that makes your data and your network and your systems inherently more valuable.
I'm not going to give my data to you if you're going to take that action. That's the trust you have with your customers, and you don't want to risk that.
I think the essence is collaboration, right? A combination of I don't think telcos or any enterprise is going to win this by building everything from scratch. Right, so maybe platform players like ServiceNow or global system integrators who have built some accelerators in the journey. Participating in TM forum kind of platforms which help define standards. So I think maybe if I take a clue, the industry has to solve this problem collaboratively rather than maybe in silos. So just to top it up.
I just want to add to this, right? The fundamental thing is we always have to, you ask what we should not be doing, right? Don't jump into the use cases immediately. Look at where your data landscape, the foundational landscape is.
Did you get burnt doing that?
What's that?
Did you get burned doing that?
Yes, because if you don't have data that can be trusted, always available and protected, then you deal with all this legal and other challenges where you have to make sure you're secluding and protecting the data, and which is going to be a cycle that would never come out of, so we have to make sure that is there. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'll give you the last word.
Mm-hmm. No, I will add something like, if I have learned something the last year is, I could have been way more vocal when all this hype started saying, there is no AI without analytics. Sorry to say, right? There is no, at least I cannot think about an AI solution or an AI solving something that does not come from an analytics-based question or problem, right? When you are not investing or you don't have the landscape from an analytics perspective of what do you want to achieve, with which data, through doing what, anything that goes in AI can be distracting or even harmful. So the last thing that you want to do is to open the door for everybody to be in a frenzy of talking about AI, and don't even understand what it takes to make this happen. And definitely, I do believe that every single company that I have spoke with, they wasted a lot of time just chasing their tails because the people who was pursuing all these opportunities didn't have a clear idea what they wanted to achieve. And I will say also something important, the health of the data that enables the AI to happen depends highly on how many people is doing analysis over that data. If there is a source system that nobody uses, a data set that nobody uses for an analysis, for sure it's going to be wrong. For sure it's going to be dirty, right? So the AI capabilities always rest over your analytics know-how and goals.
Great.
Not on time. Yeah.
Thank you all. We're out of time. Sorry, no more questions.
Sit down, everyone.
Yeah, I know you had a lot to ask, but you can take it up with them one-on-one. Thank you. You've been a great
Thanks,
audience.
Sanjay.
Hope
Thank
you
you.
enjoyed it.
Thank
That
you
was
all.
it.